first of all, I continue to be in amazement of this community. You change the day, you change the location, people are all still here, and a big shout out to Rabbi and Lisa Levine, and of course Jody and Louis and Hazen, and I can't, that's the most important part, and also Rochela and Avromi, and all the other people who do things behind the scenes to get things done, no names mentioned, you know who you are. Just reading the program takes forever. Can you imagine how long it takes for them to organise the program? I'm completely in awe of you, and I'm completely in awe of the community that so many people continue to show up to these amazing events, and may this community go, may all the communities go from strength till strength. So I wanted to talk about Shavuos, but I heard that there are going to be other people talking last week, this week and next week about Shavuos, and I didn't want to tread on anybody's toes, so I thought I would go with Parshas Bamidbar, but I'm going to link it in a little bit to Shavuos, and I'm going to link it in to what is happening on Friday, which is Yom Yerushalayim. Hopefully, if we get there. So this week's Parsha, we're starting a new book, and it's the book of Bamidbar. It actually means in the desert or in the wilderness, and it actually it's also translated as numbers, because there's a lot of counting. There's a lot of counting of the Bnei Israel in the book of Bamidbar, and also a bit in Shemos as well. So here we have it. The beginning of the Sedra opens up. This is not the very first pasuk, but the first chapter. If everyone's got the handout, source 1. V'chonu Bnei Israel ish al machanehu v'ish al diglo l'tzivosom. And the Israelites shall camp, each person with their division, according to their camp, under their flag or under their banner, according to their legions, according perhaps to their army. Just as a side point, this little verse, Ish al machanehu v'ish al diglo, is part of the words of one of the songs that people sing, some people sing on for Zmiris on Friday night. I don't want to sing the tune Kol Mekadesh Shvi'i, so this is, I'll sing it for you later when I'm not on the video. Okay, this is a side point if anybody, if anyone's thinking, where do I know those words from? Anyway, so carrying on, the beginning of chapter 2, Bamidbar, Perek based, Posuk based, we have a little bit more talking about how they camped, and there's lots of discussions about how they camped, and there's a little picture on your at the bottom of the page. Some people say they camped in a square like that, some people say they marched in a square, some people say, there's literally whatever opinion you want, somebody says it. Some people say they walked in a straight line, but we're not going to go into that at all. We're going to talk today specifically about flags and what flags mean. In Bamidbar, Perek based, Posuk based, Ish al diglo ba'osos leves avosom yachanu b'nei Israel. The Israelites, b'nei Israel, should camp, each man with his flag or perhaps his banner, whatever a flag and a banner means. Ba'osos, maybe under the sign or the insignia of their father's house, they shall camp. So I feel that everything written in the Torah is written there for a reason. It's like divine. And therefore, every word and every intonation is important. So what do we even need to know? How significant is that to our lives that they camped with flags? And Rashi comments on the word osos, because what's the difference between a degel, which perhaps is a banner? Were flags the same as what we think a flag is? That's a whole discussion. But Rashi says like this, source 3 on your sheet, Kol degel yellow os mapot savuya tuluya bo. Every flag, everybody has a different sign on it. Each tribe had a different sign on it. A piece of coloured cloth hanging on it. Tzivo shel zeh lo k'tzivo shel zeh. The person who had, one tribe had this colour, one tribe had that colour. Everyone had a different colour.
Sorry, they made them while they were in the desert.
We're going to talk about that. Okay. Seva kol echad kagon avno hakavua b'choshen. Everyone had the colour that their stone was in the choshen. And I've got this little picture here, and if you can see it, it's not exactly, because not everybody agrees as to what the colours are. There's lots of different opinions. But the high priest, here's my little picture of the high priest, wore on his breastplate, he had like a breastplate made out of gold, and there were straps that went over everything. And according to lots of opinions, that these letters shone up and answered questions they had, certainly in the first Beis HaMikdash, not in the second Beis HaMikdash. And there were different stones, and each stone represented one of the 12 tribes. So they each have flags according to the colour of whatever their, almost I want to say, their team colour was, okay? Mitoch kach yakir kol echad estiglo. And so everybody recognised, I'm in the blue team, So my flag is, I'm in this tribe or that tribe. Now they say, there's different, I don't want to go into what the colours are because there's lots of different opinions what the colours are, and I'm not going to talk about the colours now. The question is, where do they get material from? Which is, one day I'm going to do a class on where did they get that from in the desert, because obviously we know where Mon came from, but I'm always thinking to myself, like, where did they get the trees from in the desert? Where did they get, there's so many things, like, where did they get that from in the desert? But that's a whole other issue. But the thing is, we only get to hear about the flags here. And the book of Bamidbar, if you turn to page 2 on your sheet, because I wanted to fit it in according to how it fits in better. I hate splitting sources. The book of Bamidbar opens up with a date and a time stamp. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe b'midbar Sinai ba'ohel moed be'echad lachodesh hasheni, on the first day of the second month, b'shana hashenis letzeitzah me'eretz Mitzrayim. So the time of this is the 1st of Iyar in the year 2449. So timeline, they leave Egypt Nisan 2448, March, April 2448, which is approximately, I believe, 1311 BCE, just to give you a bit of timeline. And one whole year later, and 1 month later, or a few weeks later, they go in the desert. So the question is, they left Egypt, and then 7 days later, they had they crossed the sea. Then 7 weeks later, we know because we're walking towards it, so it's Shavuos, we got the Torah on Har Sinai 7 weeks later. So after they got the Torah on Har Sinai, I don't want to be like, I don't say like, what were they doing? Because they were learning, they were standing at Mount Sinai, and they were learning things, but why did they not make the flags then? Is that a good question? So you're asking me, Danielle's asking me, how they made the flags. How they made the flags is another issue, but why didn't they have the flags right away? Like, once they left, they knew which tribe they came from. Like, why do they not have the flag straight away? So for that, you have to turn back to page 1, because I don't like splitting sources. Source 4. And this is a very interesting thing that I found written by Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, who I never met him, but he was alive in our lifetime. He passed away in 1986. And he says the following. This is source 4. Shelo yotzu ka'avodim haborchim me'adonehem ela ka'am chofshi. Hold on a minute. When the Bnei Yisrael, when the Jewish people, the Israelites, left the land of Egypt, they didn't run out in the middle of the night. In fact, we know they said it was in the middle of the night was the Makas Bechoros, but they left be'etzem hayom. They left loud and proud. They weren't sneaking out of the back. So if they left and they were a free people, and don't forget, then we had a week later a splitting of the sea, and then we had the Egyptians all died before their eyes. They weren't worried about that anymore. So then the question is, well, then why on earth did they wait for more than a whole year? It's a good question. If they were a tribe, if they had tribes, why did they not, when they were camping in the deserts, they weren't moving very far, why did they not do the flags earlier? Ella, shebe'emes inyan hatagalim lichora hu pirud halavovos. Because when you've got lots of different tribes, and you each have got your own little sign and your own thing going on, that could lead to people doing their own thing. So I'm in this team, you're in that team. I don't know what it's like in the school here. If they have, when I was in school, we used to have 4 teams. And then everyone would at sports day, or you had to get points or whatever it was. So then each person would like shout their team, or if you're in like Bnei Akiva camp, and then everyone would be like colour war, and I'm in the red team and you're in the blue team. So it's sort of like, okay, that's all in good fun, but maybe if they had these flags, this would cause problems. Like they would be like, well, I'm in Reuven, and I'm in Shimon, and we're better than you, and so it could cause problems. Because each colour in each tribe had a specific symbol. And if you look on your sheet, like right at the end, it's not the best picture, but if anyone wants to look at it bigger, I've got it. I bought the actual book that I photocopied it from. It's from a book, here it is, I just put it here, put it there. Just like shows you like what sort of signs could have been on the flags. But we're not going to go into that in detail. As I said, there's lots of different opinions, and anyone who wants to look at it, I have it here bigger. Sorry, I forgot I had it here. I forgot I photocopied it bigger. And then in the book, I've got the book here where it is, but that's only one of the Mefarshim's opinion. Not everyone agrees with all of it. So everyone had a different sign and a different symbol. Now, where am I up to? V'kein hatziyurim shehoya al kol degel v'degel. And each Each tribe had like a little picture. Halozet sien ki kol shevet v'shevet yesh lo tochuna o she'ifa miyuchedes. The reason why is because each tribe had a different characteristic, a different direction. Matras echad shone mimatras hasheni. And whatever their tribe was, it was different to someone else's tribe. V'nimsa ki lichora hatagolim gormu lipirut halavovos. So you could say, well, I'm the one with the tree, and I'm the one with the olive tree. I'm the one with the olive tree, and I'm the one with the sun and the moon. So we say, for example, like Yisachar was the sun and the moon. So they were perhaps in charge of the calendar. And, Yehuda was the lion, perhaps. So he was like perhaps the one who showed strength and royalty. So it could be that, we've got this whole nation that's come out of Egypt, unified, but then we've got like our own little teams going on where it could cause problems. So why did they have to wait a whole year? What happened after a year? What happened at the beginning of Nisan/Iyar? Because in Nisan they all had some central focal point. What was the central focal point? V'hainu ha-mishkan, the tabernacle. The building of the tabernacle changed it all. V'chulam chonim misaviv la-mishkan, everybody camped around the Mishkan. Ein ze gorem pirud ela kol echad omed al mishmarto ha-miyuchedes lo, ve'ein kan shom pirud. What happens is, as soon as the Mishkan was put up, the first day it started was the 1st of Nisan in the year 2449. This is a month later. Once the whole nation had a central focus, a central focal point, everybody felt we are all unified. We are all working and walking towards the same goals. And we are going to use my ability of agriculture, or my ability of working out astrology and the times of the world, or my ability of, for example, Don was the serpent. Perhaps he was like the end of the camp, picking up the pieces. Everybody would use their unique qualities and characteristics to work towards the common aim of building the Mishkan and camping around the Mishkan. And in fact, if you look at that little picture, I know it's a cartoon, they did, when they moved, camp around the Mishkan. It was all about the Mishkan. For example, if you would be a human being, am I going to say, well, hold on a minute, I've got eyes, and my eyes, their function and their job is seeing, and my ears, their job and their function is hearing, so we'll be like, oh, let's have a little argument because you're the eyes and you're the ears. No, because they're all functioning in one human body. And I'm like loving this, because this is what Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky says. He says, we are all functioning for the same focus. So it's the same thing with a nation. Since everyone has a joint focus, there's no concern that we've got our individual flags that would lead to separation or disagreements. Therefore, all the time the Mishkan had not yet been set up and there was no spiritual center, the entire nation, therefore, all the time that the Mishkan had not yet been put up and there was no spiritual center, then the entire nation was one. Then, after it was put up, I think I have to change that. Then afterwards, they were one unit and there was one joint flag. Then the entire nation was one unit, one joint flag. But after the Mishkan was established, we have no fear of the flags. We've got no fear of tribal individuality, no fear of you putting up your poster saying whatever your speciality was, because together we are all working together to start the building of the Mishkan. And the Mishkan was set up in Nisan, and then in Iyar, 1 month later, it's the right time. It's the right time for flags. So the next thing I think you've got down is a little picture of the flags, and don't worry about source 6 because we've already spoken about that. That's just giving us the date stamp. So the question is, what do flags represent? And I thought this would be a very interesting topic, and I think that anyone who wants to say anything, I mean, think about flags. What do they mean? What do you think about when you think about flags?
Patriotism.
Patriotism. Well, I have
Heritage.
Sorry?
Heritage.
Well, I have to admit, I went to the coronation. My sister was like really gung-ho about it. And she said, even though it's Shabbos, we stayed in a hotel and we walked there. Believe me, the people around us thought we were completely and utterly nuts. Can you imagine? I don't have a phone. I don't have a drink. I don't have any money. it was very odd circumstances, but we just did it. My sister was very brave. She went up to someone eating Maltesers and said, "Can I have a few?" I wasn't that brave. I wasn't that brave, but all around us were seas of Union Jacks. And obviously we know the Union Jack history is part of, St George's Cross and also the Scottish flag and whatever. That we won't go there. Lots of flags have got red on it because there's blood. Actually, I've got a very interesting book I showed to you. Anyone was interested afterwards. A friend of mine, when I told you I was talking about flags, showed me a book which we're going to talk about in a minute. But flags evoke a lot of meaning. Think about like when people burn flags, or what it felt like when you saw a film and we see, let's say, the Nazi flag flying, and how that makes you feel, or how people can't wait to put up a flag. So, for example, in 1969, when the men, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, they put up a flag. Just as a little side point, flags don't fly in the moon because it doesn't work like that. So they had to think of a way how they were going to put the flag up, that it had like a pole over there, because otherwise it wouldn't because there's no gravity and all sorts of things. So you can look all that up. That's quite interesting, just as a complete side point. And if I'm not mistaken, today there are 6 American flags on the moon and 1 Chinese flag. It's all very important. Who gets their flag? What's it there for? So in this book that I found by Tim Marshall, who is a journalist and specialising with foreign affairs and international diplomacy, source 7. Anyone want to read it? I just took a little excerpt. Yeah, go for it.
What does it mean to try to encapsulate a nation in a flag? It means trying to unite a population behind a homogeneous set of ideals, aims, history and beliefs. An almost impossible task. But when passions are aroused, when the banner of an enemy is flying high, that's when people flock to their own symbol.
Interesting. People want to have their own symbol, but when you see someone else has got a symbol, and then passions are rising high, that's just like one. I think that when people have a joint purpose and a joint goal, I'm thinking about B'nai Akiva camp, when you do things like that, and everyone's got like the colour or an armband or whatever it is they've got, it does lead to something like, we are working towards a united mission. And although it's not this coming week, but it's going to be next week, the laning on Shavuos morning, for those people who want to stay up all night and want to hear the laning at 4 o'clock in the morning, if not in the middle of shul, we lane from Parshas Yisro, which is the 10 Commandments. And so source 8 on your sheet, we have the fact that they journeyed to Mount Sinai, and the words are written all in the plural. Vayisu me Refidim, they journeyed from Refidim. Vayovohu midbar Sinai, and they got to the wilderness of Sinai. Vayachanu Bamidbar, and they camped in the wilderness. And this is a very famous sentence. Vayichan Shom Yisrael neged hahar. As they got to Sinai, it suddenly becomes in the singular. Vayichan Shom Yisrael. He, or it, Israel, camped in the singular in front of the mountain. So I think the ideal situation is that's how we can receive the Torah if we are unified. But we have to keep within ourselves our individual, I don't want to say like our individual tribal flags. And Rashi says, source 9 on the sheet, K'ish echad b'lev echad. As we stood at Sinai, we were like one man with one heart. And I find that very, very moving. And I was thinking about that with the flags, how everyone's got their own tribal identity. All the 12 tribes had their own different flag, but nevertheless, we have to be unified. So in the desert, it was behind the tabernacle. And unfortunately, today, we don't live with the temple or the tabernacle. So we have to find something else that unites us. And I think to myself, there's so many, everyone I'm sure is aware of the political situation in Israel. And it's really not such a comfortable place to be in right now. And that's just so terrible. But then, when it gets to the difficulties and when we're being hit by rockets, all of a sudden, all the differences are put aside and all political, whatever political feelings and motivations are put aside. And anybody, if they were, I saw something, I don't know where I was, something on social media recently about how there was like a demonstration and then a scud came and whoever it was, somebody from a completely opposing side went to save someone else, like a little child who was left away from the rest of their group. And that's just unfortunately we're under attack, but unfortunately when we are under attack, we unfortunately unify a lot. I'm sorry. Well, unfortunately, it's the times that we have to see when we're under attack. But it's amazing that we are unified, and we've just got to try and brush away the differences. So, of course, I don't mean unfortunate. It's amazing when we're unified, but it's unfortunate that we can only somehow find the unity when we're under attack and we're under a difficult situation. And I found this midrash, which I think is brilliant about unity. And it's a parable of people, you can look at it yourself here, inside later on, but a parable of people sitting on a ship. And one person's sitting on the ship, and they're busy, and they've got like a little drill, and they're drilling underneath where they're sitting. So imagine we're on a boat here, and I'm like really gung-ho, and I've got my little drill going on here, and I'm thinking to myself, la la la, I'm just doing my drilling. And then you come up to me and say to me, are you absolutely out of your mind? You're drilling. I'm like, but what do you care? Because I'm only drilling here, and I'm sitting here, not bothering you. I'm just doing my own thing going on here. But really, if I'm doing something drilling over here, it's going to affect everybody. We have to remember that whilst we are a nation, and we all have to think to ourselves that our actions affect people around us. Don't think that if somebody else is drilling, they might be drilling for whatever pain they're in or whatever situation they're in, but their actions affect us, and equally our actions affect other people.
As we know, people, in authority who commit a Chilul Hashem, who belong to our nation, it affects us all, because the reputation of us is really on a balance. If we all have to behave in a certain way.
Quite right. We all have to be ambassadors, and if somebody sees you do something wrong, 100%. Someone sees one person, a Jewish person, behaving inappropriately, then they'll tar us all with the same brush, or yeah.
Did you hear Rabbi Meir spoke about the 7 concentric circles in his interview on Sunday at the Mizrahi Day of Inspiration?
I don't know. I did not hear it, but could you share it with us?
They have a responsibility in Ivrit is
Arivut, Achrayut, yeah.
He was talking about, I can't remember all 7, he said, but first of all, you have to have responsibility to yourself, to your Hashem, to your family, to your community, to Am Yisrael, Medinat Yisrael, and the world at large. And he said that you have to take responsibility, and as this person on the ship, he didn't realise that if we do something terrible, or we demean the Jewish people, then it affects all the Jewish people. One person, a celebrity Jewish person that we can all think of a few who's done really terrible crimes, and people know that man was Jewish. That's going to make them think badly about all of Am Yisrael.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Well, conversely, if someone does something and they behave in a way that they are a beacon of light to the nations, and you think to yourself, wow, then you'll think to yourself, then you'll feel very proud. It's almost like we feel it's like our responsibility and our pride when it's something, unfortunately we feel the shame when something doesn't go so well as well. So what is so special about flags, and why did Bnei Israel want flags? And there's a midrash which says that the children of Israel saw that the angels had flags, and therefore they said they wanted flags. Let's read that together. We're not going to read the first few lines, so I just don't want to go over time. So source 11 on your sheet. Okay, let's go down to the ... B'sha'a. B'sha'a shenigla HaKadosh Baruch Hu al Har Sinai, yordu imo kaf beis rovavos shemalachim. At the time when the Holy One, blessed be He, revealed Himself on the Mount Sinai, either 220,000 angels descended with Him, or 22 chariots, depends on how you want to translate it, descended with Him, all bearing flags. So this is like an image. I don't know much about angels. We'll talk about angels slightly, but unfortunately it's not an area of my expertise. Kivan shero osan Yisrael, shehem asuyim tagolim tagolim. When the children of Israel saw the angels, they somehow saw an image of angels, and they saw they were somehow draped in flags, bearing flags, waving flags. Hischilu misavim l'dagolim. They started sort of desiring, they were like, well, I want a flag as well. It's almost like a little child who's standing on the street, I want a flag as well. Omru alavai kach anu na'asim dagolim kamoson. If only we would have flags like the angels. That would be so lovely. Such a strange midrash. Where are we going with this? Omar lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, said, Ma nis avisem la'asos dagolim. why do you want to have flags? Why do you want flags? Chayechem sha'ani memale mishalosechem. I am going to, by your life, I will fulfill your wish that you want flags. This is a very strange midrash. There's a pasuk in Tehillim which says, Yemale Hashem kol mishalosecha. May Hashem fulfill all your requests. Miyad hodia HaKadosh Baruch Hu osom liYisrael. Immediately, the Holy One, blessed be He, informed the children of Israel, Va'amar leMoshe, and said to Moshe, Lech aseh osom degalim k'mo shenis avu. Go and make them flags like they want. Now this sounds like, a child who's in a toy shop going, hey, that little child holding that, I want it. And then the parent goes, yeah, okay, you can have it. It's like the most strange thing. What is going on here? Any ideas? Want to suggest? Why would they want flags? Why did the angels have flags? Strange, no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, angels are special. They want to feel special. Angels are special. They are considered to be so pure. So they're holding the flags, and we wanted to be like them. We wanted to have that connection, so that we felt that we were on that same level.
What I find strange is that an angel doesn't have a will of its own.
Yes.
What on earth are angels doing with flags? Because the flag represents a certain identity, and angels, par excellence, don't have an identity. So I don't understand the story.
And why
at
would
all.
God endorse the angels having flags if God didn't think they were a good idea?
Well, no one's saying that they didn't think they're a good idea, but it's a fascinating midrash.
No, just say, why do you need it?
Why do you need it? But then why do the angels need it? Even more so. But even more so, why do we want it? And why would we almost be jealous? Not jealous of the angels, but like...
different flags
Depending on what?
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
different archangels, for instance.
Right.
So does each archangel have their own...
Well, it seems to be here. This is either 22,000 chariots of angels or 220,000 angels. So I don't know enough about angels. It's a very difficult thing to say. But in fact, we see that in the Torah, angels appear in the guise of men, because there are malachim and seraphim and words like that, which I don't know enough about. But here they're talking about malachim, which is like messengers of God. So we have the story of Lot and Avraham, which come to mind about angels coming along. And they come as like anashim, that Lot sees them as men perhaps, or malachim, and Avram sees them as men. So were they men, were they angels? We don't know. But one thing we do know about angels is source 12 on your sheet. Ein malach echad oseh shtei shlichuyos. Angels can only, in inverted commas, do one thing. They can only have one mission. Now, where did that idea come from? Is that in the story of Lot and Avraham, there are angels, and there's 3 angels, and they're like, well, hold on a minute, if someone's got to tell Lot that he's going to be saved, well, why do we need the other angels? Then the other angels are going on to Avraham, and they're going to tell him that he's going to have a son, and they're going to heal him, so maybe Raphael was healing him. So the idea is that angels have a very defined and distinct purpose and mission in life. And perhaps what the children of Israel, maybe the flags were or were not, I don't know whether they were actually draped in flags, maybe it was so transparent to see what their specific mission and purpose was.
I say that sometimes people believe in something, but they want to show other people that. So we're all here learning Torah, which is incredible. But some people, or you go to shul, for example, and you go to shul, you're davening, or you may not be really, really present in the service. If you have a flag saying, I really believe, you're wearing the t-shirt, you're saying, I really believe in this, what I'm doing. With that flag, you're really asserting your identity and showing everybody else. You may just assume that everybody loves learning Torah or loves going to shul. Everybody does things for different reasons. But if you're wearing the flag, you're wearing the t-shirt, you're saying, I'm here, I'm present, I really believe in this.
Identifying.
So God wanted people to identify and to fight,
And
to want
assert
to
themselves.
identify with Torah being given and with the situation.
Do you want to say something? I feel that Danielle's about to say something. Okay, well, we can think about it more. But the idea I'd like to share about this is that going back to the idea that each angel has a specific mission and purpose in life. And I read something that I found very interesting by the Nesiva Shalom, which is source 13 on your sheet. It's Rabbi Shalom Noach Berozovsky, who passed away in 2000. He was known as the Slonima Rebbe. And he says the following. Why do we read Parshas Bamidbar? It's almost always, if not always, the Shabbos before Shavuos. Okay? Now, nothing is coincidental. And what he's saying is, in order to be in a position where we are ready to receive the Torah, we have to know something about ourselves. And that's got something to do with flags. So let's look at source 13 together. Korim Torah Parsha Zu Shel Degolim Kodem Kabbalas Torah. We all read the Parsha of Bamidbar, which talks about the flags, the Shabbos before Shavuos. Ki yesh b'Parsha Zu es mispar klolos b'nei Israel v'zu ha'ikar ha'hachana lekabbalas haTorah. Because something we're going to read this week on Shabbos in the Torah is something very important. It's about the flags. That is something that's a prerequisite to receiving the Torah. What is that? Haynu achdusam shel Yisrael. The achdus, the togetherness of the children of Israel. And he tachlis haTorah v'gam tachlis ha'hachana lekabbalas haTorah. If you want to be in a situation where you want to be ready and in the right mindset and the right frame of mind to receive the Torah, you have to be in a flag's mindset. Okay, you have to be in an angel's flag mindset. We need to be united. We have to be united. We have to be uniform and united. Shahatorah melamedes bezeh sheyisrael tzrichim liyos ish. Because the Torah teaches us everybody has to be, and I don't want to say the word man, it's translated as man, I would translate it as mensch. You have to behave in the correct, proper way. L'chol Yehudi yesh machane v'degel. Each and every Jewish person has within them some sort of flag. Now I'm going to say it's like a metaphorical flag. Dahainu, what is that? What is flag bearing? Tafkid v'yi'ud ba'olamo. That you have your own purpose and your own function in the world. So when we spoke about flags and we say, you can tell which country someone's from, or if people are wearing different flags, or a little pin and you're saying, 100 years since this, or I'm very into raising money for Macmillan nurses, whatever you're wearing, breast cancer awareness, that is what is important to you and that is your mission. Now, the problem is, I'm not talking about specific functions and roles that people might play and people, organizations you identify with. But each and every person has to feel that they themselves have a specific function and role to play within society at large. But each person has within them some sort of, I will call it the Yetzer Hara, but the evil inclination, okay? So look what happens, what the Siva Shalom says. HaYetzer Hara HaKasher B'yoter. The evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, tries, what they do is they sneak up on you, v'hama'amid la'adam, that sort of stands with a man or a person, al matzavo, and they sort of like make you doubt yourself and think to yourself, what's my situation? Ki'ilu she'en lo tachlis ba'olamo. That you're almost like your subconscious will tell you, well, actually, what have you got to contribute? What is special about you? What flag are you flying? What mission are you out there to fulfill in the world? And so the evil inclination tries to convince you, you're not so important. Your contribution to society is not so important. You might think to yourself that a person doesn't have a specific mission or a purpose in the world. Torah ish al diglo. Because of this, the Parshas Bamidbar, we say each person with their own flag, with your unique set of talents and contributions to make, with your unique set of talents and contributions to make, etc., etc. Every single person who's in the children of Israel, ish al machaneu v'ish al diglo, everybody's got their place within the camp, within the children of Israel, and you've got your own flag to bear. You've got your own thing that you can contribute to society. And don't let the Yetzer Hara get the better of you, God forbid, a million times, and think to yourself, well, what exactly have I got to contribute? So whether it's in a shul setting, in a school setting, in a work setting, in a household setting, never think to yourself, my role is not important.
I'm sorry, I must go. Thank
It's
you
okay.
very much.
Thank you. Don't think to yourself that your role is not important. Your unique contribution is very, very important. Shekol Yehudi hu ba'al yi'ud v'tachlis. Everybody's got their own unique contribution and mission. V'hakara zos b'tachlis olamo hi hachana l'kabbalas haTorah. Before we can get to Torah, we have to realize we are united and we are a whole nation together, but we are all flying our own flag. We're flying our own flag of whatever our unique contribution is to make. And I was thinking, because I was speaking before about Apollo, when Apollo 13 landed, when things went wrong, and we had the Houston, we've had a problem, which colloquially from the film misquoted as Houston, we have a problem. When that happened and there was a massive panic, everybody on the ground, I knew that my job was, I don't know, changing the levels of oxygen, and you knew that your job was changing the levels of, I don't know what. I'm not an astronaut actually, but each person had their mission to fulfill. They had a minute in which everybody knew exactly what their job was going to be, and everyone had to do their little part of the. Everybody had to do their little thing, whatever it was. They had to tweak. I don't know exactly how it worked, and everyone had to know what their job was to do. And in the world, there are lots of roles and responsibilities, but we have to remind ourselves that whatever contribution we have to make is unique, and we have to make that contribution. And I think that in today's day and age, I went to a talk on Sunday night about mental health awareness. Unfortunately, somebody came to speak about the fact that their child at the age of 18 took their own life, and it was really, really a hard talk to listen to. But I think to myself that in today's day and age, especially with the social media, people get not lulled into, but somehow, how does a person get to a situation where they feel my life is not worth living, and they get so anxious and so depressed where they will think the world would be a better place without me? But the Torah is telling us no. Ish al machaneu, ish al diglo. Everybody's got their own unique flag, and don't let the evil inclination talk you into saying that you and your unique contribution isn't worth it. The Gemara in Brachos tells us there's nobody nobody's mind, nobody's face looks the same way nobody's unique contribution is the same. We all have a unique contribution. And source 15, when man was created, Adam was created, Adam in the Garden of Eden, he was the only man, and that should teach us that we should think to ourselves, Bishvili nivra ha'olam, that just for me, just the world was created just for one Adam, so for me, for you, just for one person, the whole world was created. We have to realize that we're all created in the image of God, but that means that we are very worthy and worthwhile, and our unique contribution is important. But then again, we also have to look around and say every single other person that we interact with is also created in the image of God, and they have a unique contribution to make, and value their contribution. So we have to have
What happens if someone's truly evil? I don't know, like Assad in Syria.
well, then they've got their unique contribution to make, and we have to use our unique contribution to counteract whatever it is that their contribution is.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Is the reason that we read, because in theory we receive the Torah on Shavuot, that is when we should start reading Torah, but we don't. We start reading it after Simchat Torah
Yeah.
in September. Is the reason for that so that we would read Bamidbar now?
I don't know how the cycle of the year works. I'm sure it's got to do with Rosh Hashanah, and I think that's how it was.
Yeah.
And also there used to be a cycle where they did the reading of the Torah, and it went on a three-yearly triannual cycle. So they read the whole Torah less than a year. I'm going to just try and finish off because I know some people have got to go and whatever. So just one more thing is that yes, we've got to think we're amazing and everyone else is amazing, but we've got to temper that with I am but dust and ashes, source 16. And I just want to finish off with one last thing, and that is because we have on Thursday this week, there will be in Israel Rikut HaDegalim, which I had the privilege to be at last year, to be in Israel, where they walk around Jerusalem on Jerusalem Day. It's actually on Friday, but they do the dance on Thursday. And when it came to choosing what the flag would be in Israel, you can look at it yourself. You'll see what they wrote. They chose a talit, and that was going to be their flag. And Herzl said, "We have no flag, and we need one. If we desire to lead many men, we must raise a symbol above their head." And what I just want to finish off with something so incredible about this is something that Rav Soloveitchik, who passed away in 1993, he wrote about how someone should feel towards a flag. And if you look at source 1 on your sheet, okay? If you ask me how I, as a Talmudic Jew, look at the flag of the State of Israel and whether it has any halachic value, I will give you a simple answer. I'm not impressed at all by the allure of a flag or similar ceremonial symbols. Judaism negates the worship of material objects. However, we must not ignore the law in Shulchan Aruch, which says that a Jew who is killed by non-Jews is buried in his clothing, so that the blood will be seen and he will be avenged. This is in accordance with a verse, and it's a posuk in Yoel, which says, "I will forgive, but I will not forgive their blood." In other words, Jewish clothing acquires a certain sanctity when it is stained in holy blood. How much more profoundly does the blue and white flag, which is soaked in the blood of thousands of young Jews who fell defending their land and the Jewish settlement? It has a spark of holiness which flows from their devotion and self-sacrifice. We are all obligated to honour the flag and to relate to it respectfully. I don't really think I need to say anything after that, because this week's going to be Yom Yerushalayim.
And if a Jew killed by a Jew, is he still buried in his?
If they're buried, that is the rule. If somebody's buried, if somebody's killed, and if they die, and they're
by one Jew, it doesn't say if they're killed.
I've got the actual source right here, so I can look it up for you in 1 second. If they found it just says if they found a slain Israelite.
Okay.
So it's like it's anybody. I'm not sure why I just copied it, which is why it's got spelling mistakes. It's got American spelling. I just copied and pasted what he wrote. And I think to myself, like, how sad it is that we would even have a situation where it would be Jew against non-Jew. And I hope that as we stand together and we receive the Torah next Thursday and Friday, for Thursday night, Friday Shabbos, that we could stand together and we could have our own individuality. We can have unity, but not uniformity. We can be a mixture of everybody who's got their own unique contributions to make and contribution to society. Always think that your contribution is worthwhile, and looking forward to celebrating that we should be united as one nation.